You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm Owen.
And I'm still Savage, despite the efforts of the beer drink, and the whiskey drink, and the tequila drink, and the vodka drink. But here we are.
So much drink. And today, we are here to discuss Cuckoos. No, not the birds. Not those thieves of other people's offspring. But instead a game that you think is going to be about one thing. When you play it, turns out to be about something very different. A game that doesn't fulfill its premise. A game that kind of bait and switches you. So we're going to come through a couple of examples. We had a contact from a friend of the show asking us about this topic, and we decided, hey, let's get stuck in here. So for example, have you ever played the Doom board game, Nick?
I own a copy. It's full of wonderful, big, monkey kind of plasticky, demony miniature things. Things stolen from John Carpenter's The Thing. But in defense of Cuckoos, I mean, what a great surprise. You thought you were getting, another starling or whatever. It's a cuckoo. Yay, 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 okay.
Yeah, an offspring that's 5 times your size is probably great fun to feed.
And it's ravenous.
Yeah, and kicks your own children out of the nest.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'd forgotten about that bit.
Yeah, it's horrific. It's horrific.
What an amazing, weird predator parasite thing.
Yeah.
So for those of you not familiar with Cuckoos, it sounds a lot more Geiger-esque, but yeah, that's what they do. They lay an egg in someone else's nest, getting rid of, destroying other eggs. They probably even eat them, do they?
What the cuckoo does is it pushes the other embryos out, or the other eggs out, or the other young chicklings out.
Yeah, just drops that big old egg there.
Yeah,
Man.
It's horrific.
Okay, so there's that, yeah. So we're not in favour as such. They do make a nice sound. I grew up with a lot of cuckoos on the snowy slopes of Mount Roscommon. Yeah, let's go with that. So, Doom board game, yeah. It's a big old chunk of board game, promising terror and fast action in the claustrophobic corridors of Olympus Mons.
Absolutely. Except that you're playing between 3 and 4 Space Marines versus 1 Demon player.
Hoorah.
That game should be 1 Space Marine versus 4 Demon players if it was actually be like Doom.
Yeah. And it's a lot of token management.
A lot of token management. That's the kind of thing we're talking about. Like, okay, this would be cool. I'll be playing, the Doomslayer. No. You're playing one of several Space Marines fighting here. It's not actually very like Doom. It's a fine game in its own right, but it's not actually how Doom is.
No, it's much closer to Space Crusade.
Yeah, absolutely. Which is probably a significant influence on the topic.
Oh yeah.
Because hey, it's kind of what you want. Black Crusade. Ever played Black Crusade, Mick?
Not as familiar with it. I got through the first 3 of the Black Library? Who took it over? The 3 role-playing games that they put out, Rogue Trader and Deathwatch, and the other one that I can't recall now. I think they're still sitting on a shelf somewhere. But I never made it as far as Black Crusade, which was your chance to play Chaos Space things and play cultists and demigods and hey, maybe even a Chaos Space Marine. How cool would that be? As you infiltrate the Imperium.
Yes, that's part of the problem. It's like, okay, we can infiltrate the Imperium, corrupt it from within to the worship of the Chaos Gods. You're like, okay, how's the 8-foot-tall transhuman meant to do that with the extra head for screaming at people and, the extra belly mouth for extra eating?
He wasn't top candidate in the pool,
How's he meant to sneak in?
Alpha Legion were busy. Or were they?
Or were they indeed? So that's kind of part of the issue there, where the game is, it's about this, but there's not really much support for actually infiltrating the Imperium. There's support for going on crazy adventures in the realms of chaos, but actually kind of going in and breaking people up, ultimately, sentencing millions of people to a fate worse than death. No, not really.
Yeah, we can take the Ravener books or the Eisenhorn, well, more the Ravener books, as examples of the kinds of characters they maybe thought you would play with this, according to the premise. But they're masterminds and kind of infiltrators, and they're so sedition and dissent at low levels. What you'd end up doing as a group is organizing lots of, is the Emperor really that divine coffee mornings? And trying to kind of, trying to pick away at the foundation of the Imperium while, staying way under the radar, which isn't really going to give you many opportunities to bust out the mutations or the hell powers. So, yeah, a bit of a cuckoo, especially going by, look at that cover art and go, yeah, that we could do that. Where can you do that? Nowhere in the Imperium.
No, it's not that game. It's fine in its own thing. People always say they want a bad guy RPG. I think they sometimes underestimate how much work it is.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to the famous bad guy RPG, but Black Crusade kind of reminds me of Paranoia in some ways.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Oh, we're gonna have crazy mad adventures with friend computers. So what are we really going to do? Every session starts with paperwork, and the deadliest paperwork possible. And we're all going to betray each other hilariously. Well, given that we all know that we're all going to betray each other hilariously, it's kind of hard to betray each other hilariously. It just ends up with a lot of people in a phone box pointing knives at each other. Tense. So, playing all the bad guys, are we going to go into a world of darkness, or is there...
I'll always take an opportunity to take a few pot shots at Vampire. So Vampire is pitched as the game of personal horror, right? Are you a man or a monster? How can you withstand the terrible hunger within? Most of the time, Vampire, as it was actually played, was about blood-powered metahumans. You were superheroes that slurped on a bit of blood to jump around the place. It was all about the cool powers and about basically, doing wacky stuff. And the few pre-published adventures were just madness, just like lots of the crazy Smetian blood ghouls kicking in walls and, Tremere firing fireballs around the place. That's what the game actually played like, So this whole thing of, the terrible ennui and no, it didn't really come up much.
It's my game of personal horror. I mean, the way I really like to experience personal horror is with 3 or 4 friends who are kind of munching through the snacks while I gaze wistfully into the distance. It's kind of hard to get personal horror going in troop play. It's like, well, what are the rest of us doing while you're bemoaning your loss of humanity? I don't know. Fight the ghouls, I'm busy. Kind of hard to be Eric Draven with the rest of the Scooby Gang hanging around.
Yeah. Because it's not like, how personal a horror of game can it be if there's 3 or 4 other people having exactly the same issues?
Oh, woe is me, alone in my and me.
And me.
I'm alone too. I'm very alone.
I don't have a face,
Nobody loves me. I'm very, very, very aristocratic, but so lonely. The other perfect example of Cuckoo games, the Indiana Jones role-playing game. Guess what, folks? You're not going to get to play Indiana Jones, because that's why no one gets to be Mr. Black during the heist. Yeah, so you mentioned quite a few board games in the kind of the run-up to this. And would you say that they suffer from this even more than role-playing games? Because at least in a role-playing game, at least you have other people around who might all pull together to match tone or to get you to the promise somehow.
You've got a lot less flex in a board game.
Yeah.
You've got a lot less GM can go, okay, I can make this work. I can push this around to jelly, shove it into this cube. Come on, you son of a... I can make this happen, Whereas in a board game, it's like, what are you trying to do, man? Like, people who house rule board games are crazy.
It's a very understanding subset of friends.
Yeah.
Go write in your rule books, folks. It's an amazing feeling.
I'm going to house rule this. You're really not. We have to play this 4 or 5 times before we have any idea about potentially house ruling anything. And at which point, if you're playing a board game more than 4 or 5 times, you probably like it anyway. So
one you mentioned that's quite notorious for cuckooing at this point is that mecha, Eastern Bloc mecha thing. What was that called?
Not Flank.
No, there's a bear. And wheat fields.
Scythe.
That was it, yeah. I think the name is kind of a giveaway, isn't it? It's not actually about mecha.
It's not actually about mecha. It's an area control-ish game, but it's actually more about resource extraction from the area to win victory points. Someone's described as the trailer for the Scythe movie would feature a bunch of awesome mechs and war. But then you go watch the movie, it's a coming-of-age story about a teenage farm girl growing up near the factory.
Looks up from the sweat and toil towards the smoky stacks and thinks, someday I'll work there. What a brutal aspirational story that is. Oh, I'll get out of this field and work on a factory line. Ken Loach couldn't make that.
No, but like the thing is, like the mech minis are very big, so you think, oh, it's all gonna be a warfare versus the mechs. No, it is not. It like the mechs never get destroyed. It's what it is it's about utilizing a small amount of combat to maximize your VPs, and then after that, it's mostly trying to maximize your personal strategy, which may involve some combat, but usually doesn't. Fighting for extended periods of time in that game is not a good idea. Enemy forces don't get destroyed; they just get redeployed effectively. You're not going to be able to achieve the resource denial that is key to winning in aggressive warfare. So yeah, it just doesn't happen. It's not that game. You think it's that game, it's not that game.
Would you say there's subsets of these where you crack open one of these games, it plays, and maybe it even more or less matches the theme or tone it's going for, but then someone discovers, oh, actually the optimal way to win this isn't by doing the thing that is on the box, it's by doing something else.
Oh, I've definitely been there. Did you ever play the game Rising Sun, one of Eric Lang's trilogy of kind of, I don't want to say ethnic games, but he did a Viking one.
I know the ones.
A Japanese one and a Egyptian one.
It wasn't Innis and something else, was it?
No, it was Blood Rain, Ankh, and...
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Okay, Rising Sun.
Right, Rising Sun, yeah. And
it sounds like we're going from wheat to rice.
You look at it, right? If you've ever seen, there's all these giant models in the game that you can recruit, these monsters. And kind of at the start of every cycle of the game, a new set of cards are put out to draft. And those cards are something like you control this big giant gribbly monster, or you get like this special ability, or you get like basically something else really cool. And everyone's like, oh, we draft the monsters. The draft the monsters is a terrible idea. You draft the VP gaining cards. And I was playing the game and everyone was drafting monsters, and I was like, I'm going to draft these cards that give me VP when my characters die, or my army dies. And I'm going to draft a second copy of that one. And I'm playing the faction that every time a conflict starts, I get to put 2 of my guys in the conflict for free. So my entire game plan was create guys, let them get destroyed in fights, gain victory points. And I won that game by a comfortable double the margin of everybody else. I was like, and everyone was like, damn it. And the big gribbly monsters, the big cool looking guys, they're the wrong choice.
Yeah. But that's what got you in the door, or that's what got a lot of people in the door.
Absolutely.
But that's kind of a subset of Cuckoos. It is interesting to kind of think about the ones that are just entirely, nope, that's not what this game is at all from the get-go. I guess it's a mismarriage of theme and system. Or is it? Is it simple enough to explain it as that, or is there something else going on here?
It's sort of when you balanced your game, you've pushed or advantaged the wrong elements. That basically, if the one person who does the less cool thing, that's actually more productive in the long run, does better, is a problem. Because then other people have to go, okay, I can't take the cool dragon mini. What I've got to do is take the VP gaining one that I won't really benefit off, because otherwise Owen will get it and ruin the game. Damn it. Damn it. And that's a really common problem in some games. Hate drafting is a bad thing when it's a big part of the game. And sometimes you're like, I have to hate draft this to stop this other person getting it because they will do too well with it. It's funny when you play it, but it's like, you figure it out and then it kind of ruins things to a certain extent.
Yeah, if you knew what kind of game you were getting, I don't think this would be a topic. But the Cuckoo is inherently misleading. Now, this kind of goes back to an episode we had earlier this year, I want to say, or maybe last year, about game-like objects, the whole sort of Kickstarter bigification. I think we called it. You can go look it up, folks. It's called imbigification. But my concern in that episode, which is why I brought it up, was that an awful lot of things were being pushed into the market, usually through Kickstarter, that looked like games, but on review were discovered to not really function as games, but very big collections of add-ons, which weren't really helping. It doesn't really help to clear the ground, to see the things that are actually the games they purport to be, as opposed to games that sell you as one thing and then end up being another. And it's not that the Cuckoo doesn't function as a bird. It's a perfectly good bird. It's just not the bird you thought you were getting. Do you have any examples of Cuckoos that turned out to be good games, just not the games you wanted to play?
I mean, many of the ones you mentioned are actually fun games, but they're just not exactly the game you were expecting to play. Like Arkham Horror, for example, right, is a ton of fun if you ever played it. There's the Arkham Horror board game. The second edition and Eldritch Horror are very good. Arkham Horror third edition is not a good game. You think, oh, this is about cosmic horror and, you know, terrible, my character grappling against a terrible unknown mythos. And there's kind of a bit of that, but also a big chunk of the board game is getting in your car, driving your car into monsters to smash them up, basically smashing up your car to do them extra damage, then popping out with a Tommy gun and shooting them with a Tommy gun until they're all dead. It's not exactly cosmic horror.
Oh, the way I play Cthulhu. Okay, yeah.
It's great fun, but it's not exactly, to know any of this knowledge, but yeah, just give me that flamethrower.
Yeah, how scarred am I? I'm 50 cal scarred by this experience. Let's go. Certainly, players can go down suboptimal routes in games and board games in pursuit of a way of dealing with the theme or the problem at hand. Game designers should probably maybe curtail some of that. The Tommy guns and dynamite approach to Cthulhu is a great example, but no one could say that Cthulhu is purporting to be something it isn't. Conspiracy X has a little bit of this. Weirdly, Conspiracy X is sold as a lot of clandestine sort of skullduggery between human organizations and the alien other. But really, my fondest memories of that game are resource and base management. The boring bit of XCOM. The computer, a bit like Paranoia, quite a lot of paperwork in there. When you thought you were going to be playing Mulder and Scully, you're actually a provisioning agent for, you're trying to, okay, it's not staples and paper clips, it's more stealth, helicopters, and amnesia drugs. But you do kind of end up playing that game like the office manager. It's like, well, what resources can we scrape together? And occasionally you go on a cool mission.
I've played games with that kind of XCOM minigame and in board games, and they're fantastic. There's a huge chunk of AM Trespass, which is slowly grinding out resources as you travel around to build the gear you want to build. That's great.
Yeah. Are there some games that are made into Cuckoos by the community that they've ended up being played in a way that just wasn't really envisioned by the creators?
Yeah, definitely. If you look at Exalted, second edition, certainly.
Oh, yeah.
They thought, oh, this is the game of kind of epic heroism and stuff. And what they actually provided were these weirdly low-key adventures and examples of play while talking in the text about all this epic heroism and stuff. And then when people actually dug into the system, it became about paranoia combat, where all these cool powers you had, if you want to actually use them, had to be put in a combo along with the perfect defense. Otherwise, whenever you activated your charms, you basically had no ability. You couldn't activate another charm unless it was part of a combo. So if I went, okay, I'm going to activate my multi-attack thing here, and someone goes, okay, I'm going to activate my combo that lets me counterattack that with a perfect attack with a post-soak damage adder. Well, what does that mean? Well, if I hit you, and I automatically hit you unless you perfectly defend, I get to, after you roll your soak, add damage to you. What does that mean? Well, I spend enough notes to kill you. Okay, how do I defend myself against this? Did you activate a combo? No, I just activated the power. Well, you see, you need to have a perfect defense as part of that combo. What do you mean? Well, you're dead. What? I spent 50 motes, you're dead.
Have you not played knuckle-to-knuckle rocket tag before?
And that's basically the game. So it became this thing of people started to parse out the game mechanics, how they'd work in the world, and they couldn't figure out how Solar Exalt stayed alive at all, because it was trivially easy for Sidereals to track them down and then murder them before they had a chance to develop a paranoia combo.
Right, yeah.
that was an extreme example of people. They tried to figure out how the game was actually meant to play. And what they figured out was, okay, well, unless you have a paranoia, if you know what you're doing, I have a paranoia combo and you don't have a paranoia combo, you lose the fight. You're dead. You were just outmaneuvered. And it became a very different game than they thought it would be.
Did it encourage a lot of player versus player combat?
It didn't, but if you were building NPCs and you built them correctly, so it was horrific compared to the difference in power you get from someone who understood the system versus someone who didn't understand the system was insane, because you just get gotcha'd so many times. It was like going into a magic tournament where everyone is currently playing combo magic, where your deck goes off and wins the game, and you either have to include a bunch of meta, or you have to be faster with your own combo. And then somebody goes in playing like green beatdown, and just figures out, well, I die on turn 2.
What happened to me?
I'm losing so fast, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah, Magic the Gathering did occur to me as a kind of a community-made cuckoo. Because, like, the original design intent was, hey, you get a few boxes, you shuffle them together, you have a good time. But that's not... We all know that didn't happen. I mean, we were probably lucky enough to be there at the very earliest days of Magic that wasn't confined to, black and white illustrations, where, yeah, you could genuinely buy a few boxes and just kind of shuffle them together and play. But even if you only knew one other person who played Magic, a few games in, you probably went, why don't we trade? I'll trade all my black cards for all your green cards. And then the fun begins.
It's also stuff like, wait, what if I include all these good cards and not just a random mishmash of cards? And they're like, oh, well, you can't just have like 4 Ancestral Recalls. Why can't I? I bought 6 boxes.
Yeah, it says in the rules I can.
Oh, dear me. And things like, let's play this ante thing. What's ante? So we play this game, somebody wins somebody else's cards.
Did that ever get used by anybody ever?
It was banned pretty quickly, but there were several anti-cards in the first couple of sets.
I played a bunch of marbles when I was a kid in school. There was a big marbles craze, and there was always this notion that marbles played correctly, you get to keep the loser's marbles. But man, that's one way to turn the marbles scene into the Fight Club scene real quick. So we stopped doing that very quickly.
It's a concerted campaign on behalf of teachers to get rid of marbles classic gameplay, because otherwise you're breaking up fights and tiers the whole lunch break. Yeah. It's like trading cards. If you ask primary school teachers about trading card games, they will swear and curse at you.
Yeah.
Because they're like, it's just swapsies and bad trades and tiers every time, tiers and tiers and tiers, and trying to disentangle the whole thing. And they hate it. They hated the Pokemon eras so much.
Well, great news. The kids solved that by becoming completely uninterested in how the game actually played and just trading them like shells on the beach. I've got a kid. I'm not sure he knows anything about how a Pokemon game is actually played, but he loves Pokemon cards.
Well, that's fun,
I think I've talked about that before, but let's cleave back now to the premise. Then we've explored some of the offshoots, but the game that is not what it purports to be. I'm trying to think of a few other good examples. Legacy games were a bit of a flash in the pan. Games you could play over and over and over again. Starting, of course, famously with was it Pandemic Legacy?
It was Risk Legacy was the first one, which is a very cool game. This provokes a visceral disgust in some board gamers. The notion of defacing or destroying part of your game is like, ugh. I know people who had the only way their particular neurology could handle it was to purchase 2 copies of the game. One to destroy and the other to still exist pristine.
Entering the library. Of course, there was good money to be made by making add-on packs of clear stickers or things like repeal stickers and things like that.
Absolutely.
But the one I think it was Seafall was the
yes,
where the wheels fell off, and that was a game that purported to be pirating and exploration adventures in the high seas, and turned out to be, again, grim resource grinding and not as much exploration as you were led to believe.
And some tactics ridiculously better. Like you think, oh man, trading could be really... Not trading sucks. Questing is how you win the game. Oh, but inter-party PvP, nah, just...
Not doing that either.
Not worth it. Questing is how you win the game.
How do you spot a cuckoo?
When you get in and you play the strategy that the game sells in you, and it's trash compared to the strategy that somebody else just came up with that is often around something kind of tangential. Do you remember the original Star Wars CCG?
Only very vaguely. I think I'd been inoculated at that point.
So the original Star Wars CCG was all about extremely powerful, extremely rare cards that were the main character cards. Like Darth Vader was a very rare card. Luke Skywalker was a very rare card.
So it was a CCG then?
Yeah, but it was about what it was kind of meant to be about. And then people were kind of like, okay, this is what the game's like, and that's, this is great, and it's all about playing the things. And then somebody figured out, hang on, there's a couple of really good common cards that are actually really effective as a kind of a swarm strategy. And they did that, and it was so effective, they had to basically, the night before the finals of the tournament, ban stuff.
Oh, that's always a good look.
They're like, you can't play this anymore. You're no longer allowed to use Utini to ruin the format.
It wasn't serving the fantasy of, Jedi battling each other.
Basically, all these expensive super cards that everyone spent a lot of money to get are suddenly not very good. And you're like, uh-oh. And there's always kind of overpowered cards that can change the game. Like one of the Star Trek CCG as well, its whole thing was you only get to play one card a turn. So that was its thing, except there was a card called Red Alert.
Oh boy.
And Red Alert was, when you played Red Alert, you had to, I think it was there was a cost in Red Alert, discard an additional card every turn or something like that. But you could play as many cards as you want. So there's a huge number of cards to counter Red Alert decks. It's like, okay, just, what? I can play as many cards as I want? Yeah, why not?
We're maybe a little bit of an offshoot, but yeah, there's that one thing that some genius puts into a game that invalidates the rest of the game.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit of a cuckoo, all right. Okay, so one of the other community cuckoos for me is, and it's a game that no one really should ever play, is Monopoly. A game that has been turned into something else, not by the people who made it or created it, but by the community who refuse to play it as it is written. And thus, Monopoly, the high-flying fantasy of managing some low-tier properties and extracting rent from people. What a world. But it's actually just a sort of a glorified Snakes and Ladders as played by most people under the age of 15. And if you're playing Monopoly and you're over the age of 15, something's gone terribly wrong. It's still a bad game. It's designed to be a bad game, which is kind of interesting in its own way. But if played as intended, it is quite cutthroat. It is quite tense and slightly difficult to get good at because there's a whole auctioning and debt and mortgaging thing going on that a lot of young players kind of shy away from. One mechanic too many.
It's got too much player elimination, and ultimately the game is meant to end with one person having all the money, which is the biggest feel bad in the world.
Oh, that's the lesson, yeah. But not quite a cuckoo. Do we have a strong cuckoo to end on? Is there anything we should be warning people about? Is Daggerheart? Let's get topical. Is Daggerheart a cuckoo? Kind of feels like it might be. Rules don't matter, and we don't know how or why you die.
Daggerheart is there to be, look, I'm going to take what's popular from every other game and put it together into one Calvin ball. And then I'm sure good game design will happen for reasons.
If I take all the good parts out of a Maserati and a John Deere and a Velux vacuum cleaner and put them all together, they're all good parts, right? This is going to be a great machine. What does it do? No idea.
I'm thinking of the Thunder Machine from G.I. Joe, the Dreadnoks vehicle, where they stuck a jet engine on the back of it. They attempt to add an afterburner function to it by stealing the back end of an F-16. One explosion later, necessitating the theft of a second F-16 engine, they rebuilt the Thunder Machine without the afterburner.
Wait, what?
The Thunder Machine is it is a Dreadnought vehicle, so it's got two miniguns mounted at the front, and it's kind of it otherwise looks a bit like a big stock car covered in armor plates, and it's got a jet engine at the back of it. In it, the Dreadnoughts are the kind of drunken biker gang that work for Zartan, the guy who disguises himself.
You're deep in the weeds now, buddy. Keep going.
They used to do write-ups for background of the vehicles and the people. And when they were writing up the background of the Thunder Machine, they were like, they were talking about how the Dreadnoks attempted to add an afterburner function to it. So basically, in addition to having a jet engine to basically power it forward, they would also have a button they could hit to afterburn to generate a bunch of extra power to go even faster forward in the best tradition of orcs, right?
Absolutely.
And they attempted to do this using an afterburner from an F-16 jet, because the F-16 infamously has an afterburner. Stuck it on, tried it, thing immediately exploded. And they're like, okay, we need to steal the second F-16 now. That didn't work.
We're just not using the afterburner function this time. Anything else we can throw into the cuckoo's nest? Of course, famously, the cuckoo has no nest.
It's true, he steals other people's nests.
This is it. We're is that perhaps
underwater adventures?
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, that's interesting. So not even a game, but just the premise. Let's do an underwater adventure. That'd be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it'll be great. You can use all these races like mermen and Samhain and stuff as your players. And like, no, because at some point you're going to want to get out of the water. And we'll have, we'll use all the stuff. It's like, no, it's just a bunch of annoying rules minutia around not doing damage with weapons that aren't piercing and terrible movement rates and needing to cast water breathing scrolls. It's just annoying fiddliness.
Think about it. We've got 3-dimensional combat in a twisty, turny world of coral and coves. Yeah, how are we doing that in a battle map, mate?
We don't do battle. We don't do 3D combat in this game. Game can't handle it.
It's underwater adventures. Yeah, it's pretty good, Cuckoo. Just
a disaster. Every time anyone tries one, it's like, we have to cast water breathing every day. What happens if the dispel magic goes on? Oh, you start choking. So I need to have more water breathings prepared.
Yeah, not to mention that's taking the slots I was using for my build.
Yeah, and I can't move, and I've got penalties, everything. Oh, this is just frustrating. This is no fun whatsoever.
Okay, we can make this work. Hold on. Look, here's these amulets of water breathing. Put them in your pockets, fine, you don't need to wear them. And, okay, floating's kind of annoying. That Warforged is, as it turns out, quite buoyant. Here's boots of Poseidon that allow you to walk under the water. Oh, well, with normal movement speed. Okay. Haven't we just turned this into a land adventure again?
Pretty much. If you're ignoring it, what's the point? If you're engaging with it constantly, God,
Ooh. What was Escape? What was it called? The transhuman RPG that turned out to be about shopping for bodies or something. I can't remember the name of it now. It was quite trendy.
Oh, Eclipse Phase?
Eclipse Phase, yeah. Which, again, was sort of, yeah, you're going to go on cyberpunk post-human adventures, and you can swap into different bodies, and you'll develop sort of, and you've got a synthetic AI personality that follows you around. Well, what are we doing this week? We're going into the, let me check my notes, derelict space dungeon to fight transmographer. These look like zombies to me.
Yeah, it's just D&D. All your play examples are just D&D.
Yeah. Bit of a cuckoo, that one, because it is written fantastically. The background and the world is written really well. But ultimately, it's like, who'd you join? The Harpers. What'd you do? Fought Space Dracula in his space castle? Is the problem our inability to write futuristic scenarios and present them to players in a way that they can digest? Like, it's the hacking problem. Some classes actually are cuckoos, aren't they?
Yeah.
In different games.
Ruining stuff by accident,
You'll be a Decker in Shadowrun. You'll blaze through the holosphere, the network, at the speed of light, taking out AI and defeating ICE and opening the doors for your party. Table experience of hackers, anyone?
Oh, let me go play a minigame with the GM. In this case, we're playing a literal minigame. Get your Netrunner deck.
It's actual, well, which was elegant if it wasn't so slow, but it's actually worse than being a vampire.
It's way worse.
Because now I've got to go and be mechanically alone as well. But anyways. Okay, well look, I think we've eked out at least an omelette from this nest of shattered yolks. Beware of cuckoos. Is there any sort of cautionary advice we can give to people? Or is it just a case of you'll know one when you unfortunately see one?
This is what game research is for. You research your games before you play them a little bit,
Yeah, it's as hyped as you might be for something. Just be sure, check Board Game Geek. Is there a lot of disappointed people on there? Not all of it is sour grapes. Some of these people are cracked open the wrong kind of egg. Really, really trying to drive this metaphor. It's the only fresh thing I've brought to this episode. Okay, so cuckoos, not all of them are flightless birds. Some, still work as games, just not necessarily the game you wanted or expected. Sometimes you just got to make the best of that. And maybe if you and your group of players kind of recognize what you've gotten yourselves into, you could, in fact, have some fun with them. But there's always that buyer's remorse, isn't there?
100%.
Okay, folks, let's get this one wrapped up, because we've got better things to be doing. go to our Discord where you can tell us. Actually, that'd be great. I mean, I don't know if anyone's going to do this, but show up in the Discord. There's a link in the show notes somewhere. We should really check if there is a link in the show notes. I've just been copying the same show notes for about 2 years now. I better go check.
We're on Spotify.
We are on Spotify, yeah. You can find us there. We're on YouTube. The YouTubes. I'm not sure where else we are, really. It's at the whims of our podcasting software. If you like this episode, maybe like it, share it, subscribe it, pass it along to your auntie, feed it to a bird, whatever your personal preference is. For now, at least, omelets, broken eggs, empty nests, all the above. This party is over.
Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. Join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter, or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license, but you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.
All right, buddy. Great topic. I'll go and torture the AI until it spits out a cuckoo in a... I don't know what this should look like. A cuckoo laying a board game.
A cuckoo disguised as a vampire or something. I don't know.
Something like that shit. Oh, no! Oh, I know what it is. It's Chicken Boo.
Oh, yeah.
Grab a still from Animaniacs. It's Chicken Boo.
Yeah. It's a giant chicken.
Oh goodness! Maybe we could. If I thought of that sooner, we could probably have talked about players who are cuckoos. But that's
absolutely. Well, that's the second round topic.
Do that some other time.